The Warden was good at first, face value, but when you delve deeper into this pick, it just seemed like it didn't have that long-lasting effects that you want out of a carry like Icy. Everybody else was showing up and providing that support. I think Malachite and Faustus was really allowing, Icy to prolong a lot of these fights, but if it's not Icy and you don't have Brayden really stepping up on the Shiv and Slew, the mini turrets were kind of not really present in a lot of these fights, you're going to need to turn around a lot of these picks. And lo and behold, we go into the drought and you still have Purdue banning out the Mirage. I don't hate that whatsoever. I think targeting Icy is the right thing, but now Northwood just get to target Jester and they take the haze out.
Fantastic there, and I like the fact that they also finally take away this Wraith pick. Nocturnal has been so good at setting up a lot of these initial pick potential plays, playing off of her telekinesis, and it's something that now in the hands of Northwood could be an access point, not only in that setup there, but also something that we haven't seen is the absurd damage scaling. And the fact that on the opposite side of things, we also see the immediate trade for the Infernus just shows me how much of a heavy pick that Spirit constant DPS between these two mystics in particular dictate the game right now.
Yeah. And, well, I think for Purdue swapping over to this McGinnis Infernus, it's a little bit of a difference between what they had in their first setup in composition. You're kind of taking a page out of Northwood's book, but is that good enough to maybe force Northwood onto picks that they're not as comfortable with? Because we've seen Slew play this McGinnis 2 games in a row. Infernus on Tired, Tired struggled on the 7, struggled on the Infernus, so maybe it's not the worst thing to see the Infernus fall out of the hands, but that McGinnis really makes me a little worried about Slew.
Still, plenty of options on the board. It is not the end-all, be-all, and especially if your priorities towards that split potential, you do have some flexibility to work with there. Granted, the Spectral Wall combination and the split potential is at its strongest with McGinnis. So I actually am really curious to see where Purdue put it more than anything, just because, outside of Cardi kind of getting involved in that conversation, and maybe Sage, if we're still getting a little analysis on that one there. That's something that I'm waiting to see, but we'll round out Purdue with 2 major supportive pickups there, the Ivy and the Viscous. We got to see them really highlighted, notably the Ivy, of course, being a very high presence pick here in what was some of the early games there, and then alongside it, the Viscous. I mean, yeah. Faustus on Northwood shows how much survivability you can really play around between the cube and, of course, self-induce the goo ball.
And maybe the goo ball can't help out your teammates, but you can stun up everybody around you, so it does have some other effects to it. We see Malachite swapping away from what was the Dynamo back in game 1, now back to the Paradox, I'd imagine. We saw the Paradox really give some trouble over towards the Saints in terms of, I think that, Malachite did a really good job at using Paradox to set the rest of the team up. It's what you want from Paradox. If you can land those paradoxical swaps onto your opponents, that allows for your power carry to just have an even easier target to take down, or maybe the power carry's off somewhere else and you're just setting the rest of your team up. So I love Paradox being picked off. I think Paradox she's one of the best characters in the game right now, and alongside that, I'd say the same goes for Kelvin.
Yes, absolutely. In terms of the support threshold for those kind of subsidiary picks, the absolute team fight prowess and the pick potential on a Kelvin can be so otherworldly in terms of the at least current available options there in that regard. And then on top of that, playing around what is also solo damage pick potential for the Kelvin. If you're not optimizing for souls, it still doesn't matter. He has a lot of really strong base damage that in a supportive lane can be the difference maker, especially in the early game. The Shiv, though, in the end, still on the side of Northwood. We're not going to be walking away from that one anytime yet. It's been a pickup for Brayden all day long here, and it's still, like you said, an option that does hold some variety and some opportunity. It just requires a really, really nice solo skill set, and it's something that we haven't gotten yet.
Speaking of something that we haven't really gotten yet, a Pocket locked in. Okay, we are kind of talking about Pocket. Where's Pocket? And, the nerfs have put Pocket back into his briefcase, but I am still a big fan of Pocket. I think the engage that Pocket has and the presence in that front line that Pocket can, give out with that affliction is really good for team compositions at the pro level, and you see that Pocket has such big impacts for the start of fights and, you know, really withering down your opponents to allow the rest to just chip them away. And I love seeing Pocket picked up here for Northwood.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it actually ends up, if it's in potentially the hands of someone like Icy, because it does have a lot of that solo potential on the side lanes. It's not as strong with the nerfs, but kind of very similar to what we were discussing with the Shiv.
Isn't the Lady Geist going over towards Jester? It actually looks like it's the McGinnis falling into Jester's hand. Gonna have to see if that is right, and it is right. So Flash or Ian swapping away from the Paradox onto the Lady Geist. I'm not too upset with that. I think that Flash was still providing so much with that Paradox back in game 1.
Absolutely. It's something we'll have to take a look at and see how it potentially impacts the rest of this team here as we make our way through the match. I do want to point out, Icy, though, on that Wraith, we talk about the presence of being a hard scaler and what Icy wasn't able to do on Warden. I really like that they have now changed that one up there to potentially give the opportunity to be just as powerful or just as scary as someone in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think that for Icy is still playing up against Sage too. And if you can do as much damage as you did on that Warden, that's going to make this Wraith really scary really early. And the other side, the same goes for Jester, but instead of playing tired in that solo lane, you're matching up against Malachite over on this Kelvin. And if that's something that Northwood we're talking about, you know, maybe tired just isn't as comfortable in the solo lane battles, switching Malachite over onto a Kelvin is really going to put a leash on this Jester pick.
Yes, and on the other side of things, it's still Sage. And that Viscous matchup already, if you take a look at the top of the board there, is struggling. Already a whole 600 souls behind here with Icy on that Guardian push. This is something that will continue to accelerate here if Sage is continuing to play the back foot, and more than that, getting absolutely dove here. That is as aggressive as it gets. Icy going to pay the price, notably with that Guardian defense there, and ultimately not pick up the kill. But, I mean, it just goes to show what this lane might potentially become.
Yeah, I think that Icy really had a right idea. Parried out the Guardian and tried to jump right in, but albeit you parry it out, you still take so much damage. So it was a good try for Icy. I think that more so that's Icy limit testing on what you can do against this Viscous than really anything else. And this reset is going to be quick. You saw that Sage, with that little bit of a lull, was able to close that gap to 400 still. But now going to have an item at least underneath this Viscous. So Sage just trying to do their best to stay in it.
Very curious to see Faustus now on this Pocket. It was last time around he was playing on the more supportive entity. This time now from a distance away, Cardi with that shoulder charge, barely able to get out of the action. Be very careful around those denizens. They are more than happy to take a bite out of you here. Background, though, on a really nice defensive stance there, on a punch out and away here. Meanwhile, Faustus far too deep here, could potentially be caught out. It's just a bit of a pocket case away from saving the day, and Macron picked apart just as quickly. Fantastic separation there from these two to really throw in some confusion to the mix.
They're going even further to take the camps of Purdue, so that is really going to limit Cardi and Macron's early spirit, early spirit advantage. It's going to allow for Northwood now to just scale a little bit further. This Pocket's going to get more dangerous. The Shiv's going to get more dangerous, and I think for Brayden really showing that, you know, or Faustus really showing that, you know, the Pocket can really battle against an Abrams and still not be worried is something to take note for Purdue, because Cardi was doing a great job on this Abrams and taking those 1v1s back in game 1.
And I do want to point out that we are at that scaling position with Icy now, already securing his first initial kill there onto Sage. The lead has exploded. What was 400 has now become 1400. This is something that's going to lead to an early telekinesis and notably an immediate Guardian here. I can't imagine Sade escapes away, a puddle punch to the skies with the card on its backside. It will inevitably be the movement from this, but it doesn't change the fact that Icy is a problem. And this time around, compared to the Warden, this is a problem that doesn't go away.
I was going to say exactly that. I mean, this Wraith is only going to continue to get worse and worse. Brayden with the killing blow just barely misses out on taking down Macro, and that's the healing right for the Ivy, but it's still not enough. Faustus follows up, and while that's going down, Jester does trade onto Slew over towards purple, but I don't think it's going to be enough for this McGinnis to take that Guardian down.
Wow.
I do like this from Brayden, though, looking to take a different look onto Cardi, see if you can finish off this Abrams, and not with the killing blow, so you're not able to finish that off as easily as you would have hoped for, but you do back Cardi down for a second.
I do want to point out that there was a heavy rotation from Malachite there to play around that park side. They're seemingly learning a little bit of the lesson from this first game with Jester picking up that initial kill there. They are being a lot more respectful of that potential scaling power. And while I don't think, personally, the McGinnis gets just as bad, you still have to be respectful. A combustion over the side comes up a bit too short for Nocturnal this time around. Could have been maybe another security for Purdue there.
Yeah, two really smart ultimates. I mean, if you land that concussive combustion from Nocturnal, then you have a chance to pick out Malachite. But the paradoxical swap just allowing you for that extra escape back into your lane. That's really good tech from Malachite and something that you expect from these. Tired?
It's potential.
Everybody fat fingers once in a while.
Yeah, maybe misclicks. Either way, that's a big tool, not available for utilization. Telekinesis online from Icy. Cardi does get a bit further away, but I mean, you're still stuck.
Those card tricks do just so much damage. Macron, I was going to say not long for this fight, but able to escape, and that Guardian just continuing to bleed out in Greenwich. And for the side of Purdue, it looks like they're calling for some assistance from Broadway. The lady guy is going to pan over Ian. Maybe looking to provide some support, but will end up moving back to Nocturnal, who falls down, left alone over at Broadway. Now you definitely need to turn around if you're Ian.
This is big problems here for the side of Purdue. Constantly pressured here by just about every single matchup. It's literally just Jester who's notably slowed things down here, and it's off the hand of really, really good control of lane spacing, right? Sending some of these lanes forward for optimal rotations for potential ganks. Icy getting involved early, you saw there on Greenwich, and of course Malachite being just about everywhere here, notably on that Paradox. It makes for a disgusting start, and Faustus, once again, now another kill picked up. I believe that makes 3, sends out the Affliction, just barely, I think, gonna miss out on Cardi there. It is gonna be Brayden who instead finishes the job.
Seems like Purdue are struggling even more than in game 1 for this early side.
And that's
Jester. That's exactly what you're looking for from Northwood. We talked about maybe swapping out Tired and Icy when it came down to the lanes. Well, Icy just gets the job done against Sage and then eventually makes their way over to Jester. So you can see that Icy definitely making some moves with this Wraith pick.
And there's Malachite. Barely caught out there almost. Nocturnal could have sustained one of the first pickups of the match here, and instead results in nothing. Meanwhile, Jester on the other side, that heavy barrage, it's strong, but it's nothing compared to the absolute onslaught we saw from Hayes last time around. Instead, now a double pickup over here towards Park. Sage will falter all the same. Brayden will absolutely pump house here. It's 60% resistances, but I mean, it's nothing in the face of 100 health.
No, nothing at all. And now begs the question, Zephyr, for Purdue is, yeah, we know what this team does when you have Jester on the Haze, absolutely scaling to the max, but when you don't have Jester carrying your team, where do you make those changes to step up together rather than individually? Because we did see those team plays back in game number 1, but they were definitely put on a pedestal with the performance that Jester was having.
Absolutely, and I will say, it makes it hard to analyze the real power potential of Purdue. We make some calls regarding Cardi early, notably on that Abrams, and potentially maybe some hard scaling potentials between both the likes of Flash and Nocturnal here, but the reality is, if everyone is feeding this one out, I mean, it leads to a tough game. Now, the one saving grace is the fact that in terms of your power scalers, they are all still close on the souls. Faustus from above, though, with a couple barrage hits there, makes it look like it might be the end. Love the stun from Macron there, but you have to respect the pocket all the same. It's still a chunk of damage, that Affliction. It's just going to force this lane apart here.
It is. Purdue grasping at straws. You see the cloak is going to take Cardi so far down. Into the case you go. The damage is astronomical. It's a fight in punches. You go for the parry, but oh, that's an issue for Faustus. He's going to be traded out from Sage there. Macron did land the stone form, and although Macron still falls, it's enough for at least the kill onto Faustus.
I'm glad that
Well, it's somewhat of a semblance of return. You see Jester getting involved, and it was what I was pointing out. Even if we've seen heavy kill presence on the side of Northwood, it's early game. Soul potential for the kills is not very, very strong here. What I am looking for, though, is now with this early dominance, what does Northwood do? They're already on the earned potential there, and we secure something a bit bigger. Combustion comes up just a bit too short on the other side.
Yeah, you just want to keep this lead. And the urn is moving. It is on the side of Purdue. So you have to go into enemy territory. And with that soul lead not being too much of a disparity just yet, only 6K, it's something that Northwood will feel confident with, but it's not a sure deal just yet. So I like the call to drop that urn.
Cardi really getting into the face of things there. Going to take a huge chunk of that damage, more notably even from the Guardian there. Have to play respectful, even with a bit of the shielding now available. Tries to heal that one up just a little bit with that Siphon Life, and even still, not quite in that kind of vitality situation just yet. The only real major healing tool there, of course, being the like of the melee lifesteal. We'll have to wait for the itemization.
Yeah, Icy just does not want to stop on this Wraith pick. It's giving me Mirage vibes from what we saw versus St. Clair. And Nocturnal made good use of this Wraith back in game number 1, and to see Icy excel in it as well is no surprise. It's tough to see it fall out of the hands of Purdue at this point, but you do pick up the Guardian over at York finally for Sage, so now you can stop really worrying about this wave getting pushed into your Walker. You have a little bit of breathing room to move around if you're this Viscous. Now looking to provide some support, but there's a lot of support that you need to pick up. And here they go into Greenwich. Braden just chipping down on towards Cardi, looking for two. Slice and dice, bringing down Macron. Cloak's gonna TP in the backline for Faustus, and Macron will fall. So will the Guardian.
This time around, it's not just Icy. Faustus has absolutely dominated this lane-to-lane matchup here, and it continues to get worse and worse. Meanwhile, Tired on the other side, playing respectful, notably with Jester. Nocturnal, though, looking just as low, and with this full rotation, it will be Braden continuing on that aggressive sense. It's that full highlight of the Shiv as well here. These are all power pickups that are in their full stride forward. Malachite to jump alongside them continues to butcher the likes of Purdue here, and they're already sustained for the Walker. A kudzu bomb falls short there due to good walls.
Yeah. Good walls going to stop that one. Forcing away Northwood, but they do proc for a fight over at Broadway. Walker, Cardi goes down. The Storm Cloud was actually brought in by Tired. He's going to end up getting traded out by Flash. The lady guys at least on damage control for Purdue. As that got a little bit scary. Northwood, they were fighting on two fronts. You had Icy 2v1ing over in Uptown York, trying to poke at that Walker. And I thought it was going to be enough to allow that Walker on Broadway to be destroyed, but that is good for Purdue to hold their line.
I will say this is one of the major last chances, I will say, for Purdue to figure things out here and now. Notably, the gold still very, very secure on a lot of those major carries. It's not absolutely ballooned yet, but we're getting to that 15-minute mark, and this is where those kills really start to shine. That's when the soul lead that you get from them, and more importantly, the map control that you've opened up in the early game, leads to extra camps and an extra lead that is hard to come back from. For Cardi, it is the engage, though. The chase from Icy. Can you defend it?
No, you can't. Icy just chasing down Macro. Here comes the Snow Globe, and you've trapped two. And you're fighting against what is quite a hefty Wraith. Gooball now looking to stun up the rest. Allow for an exit from Cardi. The chase is on from Northwood, but not sure if they're going to be able to take down Cardi in time into the briefcase. And that is some damage from Faustus.
Really nice.
The concussive combustion catches Faustus up top. Traded by Icy. Cardi still wants to fight this one out. The punching not going to get through the damage. That is this Calvin and Shiv duo. Yes, Tired will end up going down onto the side of Park, but This has been Northwood just forcing through these lanes.
But it's not clean, though. Purdue has picked up multiple in response from this. Brayden, Foss is tired, all down from the depths. Listen, well, yes, Macron will be picked up in response. It's not as dominant as a team fight as I would like to see here. You're still building gold, notably on Flash, of all people here. A supportive entity, someone we saw last time around really making a name for himself on the Paradox, is starting to become a slight problem on this Lady Geist. We talk about that power scaling with the spirit control. This is something that even from afar can potentially become a greater issue.
Yeah.
Heavy vitality prioritization going to be very healthy now for a lot of these fights here. And of course, at any given point, that soul exchange can be a huge difference maker.
And we did ask the question of, you know, if not Jester, then who? And for Ian to be stepping up in this Lady Geist, it's something that I'm sure fans at Purdue are breathing a little sigh of relief to find. But now Jester is going to be chasing a few shadows here. You do get the urn picked up by Tired, so it looks like Northwood going to make a run. And it is an equal urn, but Greenwich going to lose their Guardian. That's Purdue finally going to get that flex slot opened up, the first one. And now it looks like Ian going to try to work alongside Cardi to get this Kelvin.
I don't think there's much work being done there. They've hung up their hats off of that one. The Calvin, just a slippery beast at that. I still like the fact that Purdue, though, are playing more defensively here. They've got some of their strongest picks waiting on the edge of that urn. Tired to be the one to deliver. Already setting up there. Full response from this roster. Have to be respectable. Jester down might be the walk away from this.
This is something that you're going to fight. You have Icy all the way over and towards Parks. They're going to go in on this one. They're going to go
combustion.
Combustion. Now in the snow globe. Flash falls, but it should be a trade. Slew goes down. Tired, weak. Has to escape. Can the 7 get away? It looks like you will be able to. Malachi going to land the kinetic carbine onto Sage, but right now Northwood are on the back foot of this fight as Cardi's going to activate here. The Abrams trying to chip away, but Brayden, the Shiv, at least delaying enough to take Cardi down. Trades are just so back and forth right now as this fight is very messy on both sides. The urn still being pushed by Tired. It will be collected. And Purdue, you do not want to lose these last two members.
No, not at all here. But like you brought up, it wasn't perfect. Such an odd separation of that fight, notably between the height back over towards downtown and across more directly on Earn's side here. And you have two separate exchanges that ultimately, while yes, ends up in a successful Earn take for Northwood, is really nothing to write home about. You're still seeing some explosive leads here and major targets, like I said with Flash, still starting to come online. The problem though is it is starting to get a bit more expansive, and the truth is Icy is on Wraith. If we're talking about one of the best primary scalers in this game currently, we got to talk about the Wraith. I mean, I will say Nocturnal in this Infernus has looked good, but we're still waiting for the signs of life that would make me really confident in her play to say, okay, you can match this up toe to toe here, and being behind 6k souls is not something that would reaffirm that.
I don't think we're going to see that until Icy joins the team fights. A lot of these team fights, Icy's been split pushing, forcing Jester away to match that, and we haven't had, you know, Icy really get tested against the masses. So until Icy joins the fights, that is going to be something that we're worrying. Telekinesis is up. Slew or Sage is being washed. He shouldn't need this ultimate to clean the rest up. No, the card trick will get the rest done, but as they trade, now you might look for the ultimate.
And potentially some catches there, Macron on the other side. That's something that they'll probably be unable to secure there. Meanwhile, with the rest of Purdue showing up to play around this Walker. From the height, though, it's a perfect situation for Icy to absolutely shred there. Just barely doesn't take it away as that heavy barrage comes in to pressure defensively there. It's something that'll save the Walker for just a moment longer, but I want to point out how deep on Greenwich and Broadway you have the rest of Northwood pushing. This is something that's going to be very hard to hold.
The even Park is moving minions right up to your walkers, so you're spread thin right now if you're Purdue. I like this from Cardi going in onto Fossis, lands the punch, and actually avoiding a lot of this damage that Fossis is throwing at him. This Abrams, good for the sustain and good to keep this walker up.
Yes, it's all at that point. I would be surprised if we see a kill. It's just to keep this one alive here. Sage, notably, do want to point out, does have that superior cooldown, so we talk about that safety that we have really built upon, notably with this Viscous, might be super behind on the souls, but has invested a whole third of their itemization towards it. Icy, though, telekinesis is hard to beat. Just hard to beat. You need something to survive it potentially later on, and Unstoppable would be huge just as a vitality pickup to prevent that from being an issue.
You don't have the telekinesis this time. 1 versus 1. Macron now getting walked on by a second. You have to get out of here. You do have Nocturnal on your wing, but it's a 3 versus 2, so Purdue have the numbers to push York in. The Walker goes down. Flex slot number 2 for Northwood, and I don't think they're going to stop here. Malachite takes Broadway, and Purdue are struggling at finding footing.
This is tough here. Ultimately, in the end, Slew really providing what was a nice supportive entity between things like that rescue beam, of course, and having alongside the healing booster. Makes it so hard to actually lock down pickups like Icy in these situations here, and it makes for what you would assume is a surefire successful wipe into, well, maybe not the best situation. In the end, single walkers up on the side, and now a major urn on the other end, likely not to be secured by Northwood, but with 1 walker left standing here, it still isn't offered potential. Purdue now starting to slip in where they need to be. I just still can't help but bring up Flash. I really am curious to see what Lady Geist brings to these fights, because they are neck and neck alongside Icy.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it's like, even though you're neck and neck with Icy down 2k, then Icy is, what, 9k up over Jester?
Yeah.
8k up over Nocturnal. Like, Icy has quite a lead over the majority, and that's going to allow for Northwood to feel some confidence in pushing this urn. Jester's getting caught yet again in the team fight. That's going to back them down, and while this happens, the Greenwich Walker is over. So all walkers destroyed for Purdue. Northwood looking to do their walk of victory into the base as the urn goes down. Everything's pointing to the Timberwolves.
Meanwhile, a big separation on this fight leads to what might be some nice pickups. It'll start with Nocturnal, a big damage provider, and you have to slow the pace here. You can see from a distance away, it is a little bit of those Malice stacks coming through, but ultimately picking the rest of this team off piece by piece. You may be 23 souls ahead, but I mean, that's nothing to write home about. Now, with a major lead, here. 2 members down, yeah, you could walk to mid-boss and just potentially secure this, but hey, steal potential is there.
Yeah, you have the Kutsu Bomb. You still have the Lady Geist if you do want to throw in an Essence Bomb. But it's going to take a lot of a fumble for Northwood to lose out on this mid-boss. Nobody's even stepping up to this one for Purdue. They have to worry about these lanes. You still have Park pushed all the way to Uptown Walker, and this is the right call for Purdue. Although you could steal it, I don't think it would really matter, just in case it didn't work out.
In the end now, we're playing defensive, as survivable as you could imagine, and what we talked about is being this 15 to 18 minute mark where the kills and the team fight prowess has truly put just about everyone online. We were talking just about Icy. I mean, Faustus, of course, with major leads in the early game, but when we take a look at just about everyone else, their itemization, souls, and AP are now just as much or akin after some of these great team fights here. And this is where we start to see that gap absolutely explode. 40k in a difference here now with a massive 29 AP difference. It is no longer close in return there. And I mean, it's a tough.
Yeah, you're looking to max out most of your abilities. As Tired's going to be caught, now trying to escape. Should be no problem, but that's a good ultimate. The seismic impact now chasing him down. Nocturnal's going to finish that kill, and there's kind of step 1, but the telekinesis maxed out. That's going to catch 3 of them. Icy jumping right into the deep end and destroying Purdue. I cannot believe what I'm seeing from this Wraith. Absolutely taking over the map.
Just a slaughter here. Slew will finish off the job alongside Nocturnal there, and as Northwood continues to rack up the majority of the Purdue roster here, a 3v5 situation with a quick rejuvenation from the mid-boss means that Northwood are more than happy to potentially walk this one in. Of course, when you've got Raquan completely separated, splitting here, you don't actually have 3. It is a 2v5.
2v5 with 15 seconds up on Jester and Cardi. 22 on Nocturnal. Most likely, you can get both shrines, that last flex slot, and possibly even the patron. You're pushing it with the patron, and Macron from above may have just saved the Sapphire patron itself. Stomping down with the stone form onto 2. The spectral wall now maybe catching a couple more exits, but the friendly base guardians of the Amber Hands have fallen. And so have the shrines. So not only do Northwood break into the base with the mid-boss buff, but they also have all of their flex slots unlocked, and Purdue only have 1.
I would be worried about it, but they don't even have the money to spend, I'd say. It's going to be something that stutters them just a bit here, but in the end, I mean, at least now going into the defensive end of this game here, something that I've seen as a weakness of Purdue is their lack of effective responses as a full team due to the splitted nature of Northwood's pressure. At least now, they're all going to be shooting for patron. And when that's the case here, that might be your best setup yet. Granted, being grouped together against, major pickups, notably like that 7, like that major pocket on Foster's here, and of course Icy, which I can only assume has the itemization to just shred through these team fights. It's going to be very, very, very hard, but at least we'll finally get to see probably one of the first put-together team fights from Purdue this entire game.
It's surprising, too, because of how put together they were back in Game 1. I think the shakeup on Jester has definitely dismantled a little bit of composure. The paradoxical swap. Cardi is in trouble. Going to use the shoulder charge, but everybody else is chasing down this Abrams. Malachite has no real care to chase after it, but Ern's being moved by Tired. A team fight's getting forced inside Uptown Broadway. And you lost that Abrams, so you have to give this up if you are Purdue. You cannot chase for the Ern.
This is tough here. It's not even about giving it up. It's just ultimately waiting for your opportunity to strike. And because Northwood can pull the trigger on any one of your mistakes, and you're left to play a defensive game against these setups. And for Tired,
Spectral Wall.
Kind of a bad, but the Spectral Wall separates this one out. Meanwhile, Deep engages from the rest of Northwood. They know this is their chance to shine.
Jester's going to find Slew. That's good pick up there with the turrets just bleeding out the Kelvin. Paradoxical
Tired
swap
down.
now onto Sage to the trade there. Tired goes down, so it's a 4-on-3. If you're the side of Purdue, you have the numbers inside of this with the close spawns as well. You're able to get your teammates into the mix. Icy going to be looking to pick up the rest. Malachite providing some support. Jester falls, and now Purdue losing that edge, losing the advantage that they so were looking to hold on to. A couple kills from Ian, but I don't think it's going to matter.
It's still a 2v1 situation. The Ern secured in the end. You got to give credit where it's due to Jester, really trying to stunt that fight out for as long as possible around the Spectral Wall. But the minute Icy was finally able to get around that Eclipse there, it just became such a deadly fight here.
This is rude. You just can't let this happen if you're Cardi. The seismic impact just trying to get away and stay alive, but a lot's forced out there from the Abrams just to get away. You're able to get that Ern to it, and look at this. Icy's sitting on 11k souls, so this Wraith is only going to get more powerful.
I'm very curious to see the itemization. We saw the tier 4 pickups there between things notably like that Diviner's Kevlar alongside the Shadow Weave. These are strong, but in terms of the teamfight-oriented tier 4s that I was waiting to see, we're not quite there yet. Oh, that's an expansive pickup. Boundless Spirit. Just an absolute shred. Shiv alongside that with that escalating exposure for the bleed is something that makes these sustained fights so much more difficult. You'll see Faustus a little bit more balanced, only know the Divine Kevlar, and yeah, there you go. A little pickup in the end for the crippling headshot. That's something to at least give some way, but it just goes to show that with these extra souls, it is a building problem here, and more importantly, the souls are starting to catch up for Purdue, and now this is where that flex slot issue becomes a problem.
Faustus building into the crippling headshot, not only helping the pocket, but it also helps Icy too when you have the spirit reduction and the bullet reduction.
Yes.
That is
it's nasty.
It's nasty for Northwood. I mean, they have the win condition, and I don't know about you, Zephyr, but never have I ever seen a comeback in Deadlock just yet. I don't even think it's possible to make a comeback in Deadlock. So Purdue's gonna have to make some magic happen, and here we go with the soul swap there onto Icy, still able to TP his way out of this one. Now turning around with the card trick. You have the goo ball tracking down a few of these members, and the concussive combust actually gonna stun them.
They got it!
Icy and Tired go down, and Purdue, they're not done yet.
You said you haven't seen a comeback. Well, I'll tell you what, that last fight has let Purdue itching here. It was closer than we expected, and that's all Purdue needed to feel a glimpse of hope. Tired and Icy, 2 major pickups, maybe not just the strongest, but a big deficit for time on the clock. 30 minutes here. They don't have the waves to push to, once again, like I said, open up those flex slots that are so important, but it just goes to show that the power potential of Purdue is coming online, notably in the hands of Macron as well, by the way. 29k souls has absolutely ballooned as a secondary leader for this team here across this game.
Yeah, the Ivy struggled early too, so it's good to see Macron coming online. The issue kind of bodes, though, is the objectives. You still have a Guardian over on Broadway and every single walker for Northwood, so it's just, you're looking for Purdue. It's not just down to the team fights. It's finding those team fights clean enough that you can shove these lanes and get these objectives.
I'll tell you what, if you're working up against Flash with the soul exchange, you gotta pay respects here, potentially with some silences, with some options across the board, because that's something that spelled a major difference coming off the back end of that last game. Huge shout out, though, to the Mystic Reverb. We're starting to see a little bit of that itemization coming online for that Ivy. Not so much of the bullet build, more so playing towards the spirit. That kudzu bomb spam going to be really impressive, and with the heal bane to go alongside it makes for these extended team fights when you have a lot of the AoE to be a problem.
67-second respawn for Jester, and right now with that pick, yeah, go mid boss. Why not force a fight here if you're Northwood? This is exactly what you'd want, is to set a trap.
It is a big split, though. You do have big investment from Faustus and Brayden. They're not super stable there. They're going to have to walk away given how well Purdue's fighting this one out. Faustus already down.
And now for Northwood, the trap has been set, and it is sprung. Everybody jumping away from the mid-boss to see if they can trade out from Faustus. Macron goes down, Cardi there. Sage follows in suit. And Ian and Nocturnal, they are running back to their spawn. Well, Nocturnal taking a different route, but that mid-boss surely will be grabbed now.
This is a big problem. Jester will be up within those 15, but it is still a 3v5 situation, and you know, we talk about power players. Flash is up on that board, and Nocturnal should be in a position to be more of a threat here. But ultimately, it is a numbers disadvantage with quick resets on the board. This is the best option for Northwood to finally end what has been a very tough game to close out.
32 minutes, 47 seconds. And Purdue playing base tower defense.
20 seconds.
Couple of seconds on these respawners. It looks like that patron now looking to transform, as they're going to decimate the first form. Players of Purdue should be coming back into this one, so if you can stay alive, you're Nocturnal, Ian, and Jester, they should be able to fight this one. It's not going to be done just yet, but Purdue, they're going to be losing out on a lot more than just the patron. Every single base boss going to be destroyed.
They know with the full reset from Purdue, they're not in the best situation with major utilities like that telekinesis and that storm cloud no longer available here. You might as well wait it out. You were in a dominant spot with the mid boss, and you have just cracked this base wide open. One major mistake, one major pick on the side here for Northwood just means you absolutely win this game. Why potentially throw it all away?
And for Purdue, I mean, yeah, maybe you can defend your base, but can you defend your base twice? Because that mid-boss buff, that's going to provide a shorter respawn for Northwood. And they know that this is their chance. Paradoxical swap. It's going to force Cardi out onto the other side. The Spectral Wall catches Malachite now. Can you shut this Paradox down? Macron dies first in this whole tussle. The Storm Cloud is going to force away Purdue, back them into their base, and here comes Northwood to end this game and force a game 3 in this show match. They're going to jump into the pit, and they're going to start poking this away. This one is over.
Ooh, Combustion Deep, though, trying to pin off the damage that they can. Finally arriving is the likes of Icy here. Tired, finally low enough to be picked off, but in the end, the Patron even lower. We're going to a game 3.